What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Claims Podcast. I'm here with Jane Castillo, CAT Claims Specialist. Jane, thank you so much for being on.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, first things first, I think what people would love to know about you is how did you kind of get into CAT Claims? How did your career develop you into the person you are today, and what really stood out to you about your field that landed you on the journey you're on now?
My goodness, it's not an exciting story. I really just fell into claims. I got into claims via a recruiter, just kind of looking to put my college degree to use and earn more money. And this was a time when there were not a lot of women in the claims industry, specifically outside adjusting, and they were actively recruiting women.
That's an interesting theme there. I actually hadn't even thought about diving into that as a niche to look at here. Would love to hear more about if there was anything. Have you felt that that's gotten better over time, being a woman in claims, or has that been something that's kind of always been a bit of an uphill battle?
Well, I think it's a little bit of an advantage in terms of women. I still believe very traditional roles for women. So I think women are a little more observant, a little more caring when it comes to customer service, and able to respond to people in a way, if they're having a claim, obviously they're going through something. And I think a woman has maybe a natural ability to be a little more empathetic and sympathetic to the customer and what they're going through, and respond in a different way than a man could. Again, women more organized, maybe naturally, more observant. So I think it's been an advantage in that way. Right.
There's something there. I mean, Iceland, where the only bank to survive was women-led, and now that's a case study for them, they have to have at least 50% of their board being women. So there's definitely some meat to that case study. And then kind of around that theme of progressing through claims and getting into claims, would you have changed anything if you could go back and give yourself 1 minute or less of advice? Knowing everything that you know now, is there anything you would have done differently, or at least maybe told yourself something to give you a head start that you learned along the way?
I have a friend in claims who always says, you won't catch up until you die or retire. So if you're new to the claims industry, it has a bit of a tough turnaround. It can burn people out. So I think I would kind of take that advice and not put excessive pressure on myself. Let myself know, you're going to get it all done eventually. Just prioritize, stay organized, be happy with what you accomplish each day, and be proud of what you do. This is actually a very awesome industry to get into. There's always a place for someone, and we're helping people. And that should be the focus, not so much going in maybe from another career, another type of industry where, you get your work, you finish it, well, I'm done. It doesn't happen that way with yours. Sometimes claims drag on for a year or more. So that would be the advice I give myself, just to change my focus a little bit about what I accomplish and not so much pressure.
That makes a ton of sense. I just finished reading a biography on Churchill, which kind of details how he handles adversity during the war. Not to complain that we have it that bad or that claims is anything close to war, but the aspect of it that's kind of drawn out and having to take it one day at a time. I don't know if you have any techniques that you recommend. I found kind of applying that mindset of keep calm and carry on, or at least some aspect of mindfulness. For some folks, that's breathing. For other folks, that's just keeping perspective that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Does any of that resonate with you?
For sure. And this generation has that kind of mindset of being in the moment. And I think that's really important. Just be in the moment. Don't let yourself get stressed out about what might come, what might happen tomorrow. How am I going to get all this work done? Just be in the moment. And I think that's a great saying, keep calm and carry on. I think Churchill was awesome, by the way, and that's probably the book I should read because I love him. But he saved the world, but that's a different conversation, I'm sure.
100%.
But really, be in the moment and keep calm and carry on.
That's awesome. Can you imagine what the CAT claims would have looked like in that scenario?
Oh my. Yeah, I actually can't imagine. No, thank you.
Speaking of that, actually, to take it a little bit high level, and sorry to put you on the spot a bit, but if you could explain it for a 5-year-old, read me, as someone hypothetically who's a novice, how would you describe CAT claims or what you do?
What I do in a catastrophe claim is I'm responding to somebody that may potentially be going through one of the worst times in their life. I handle commercial claims, and I have handled personal lines claims in the past. And it's a little bit different, but essentially the same. Somebody's lost something or going through a disaster. It's very stressful. You can't think. So you're there to help somebody hold their hand through the process and help them get back to where they were before this disaster happened.
And does that feature in today's world, given everything that's going on, something like a COVID-19 event? Do you deal with that at all? Yes,
and I think so. I think it's the same sort of impact, other than these coronavirus claims or even our day-to-day life surrounding the virus is unprecedented. You keep hearing that word, and they call it the new normal. It's not normal.
Right.
It's new, but it's definitely the new abnormal. So it's a different kind of stress. But boy, the way everyone has responded, I think we've learned something about ourselves, how we can respond in a disaster. Our generation hasn't, or many generations haven't seen that type of, you were talking about Churchill. It's like being at war.
Right. And our stories won't necessarily be as interesting as our grandparents' stories, but there is certainly a level of strangeness or unprecedentedness to it. And I agree with that. It's a weird feeling. I've worked from home before, but this is a little bit more of a sense of duty or sense of something bigger is at work than just a regular work from home day. So I think that's well put. I'm kind of curious on that note, how would you think about the way this is going to impact your industry in the short term and long term? I know as a Brit, we've seen a lot in the UK already of claims increasing. Folks around the restaurant industry, for example, a bunch of different folks that are kind of touching on industries that rely on people being out and about have obviously been quite hard hit. Is there anything that you would kind of see happening in the medium and long term, and as insurance companies respond to this, that will see them through? Like, I know in the US there's been a little bit of legislation around how this is going to be handled. So do firms have to pay out in general? Are they going to be supported by the state, things like that? Do you think that's going to play a big role in how the outcome of all this will play out over the medium and long term?
Yeah, I think bottom line, it's money or a financial impact. In terms of our industry, the insurance industry, we may experience loss of premium, and businesses will fail and they'll just close, and we'll see kind of that impact. But, you know, especially particularly Americans and business people are really resilient, very resourceful. We might end up coming back as a country or as a world even better and stronger. So it remains to be seen. I think in terms of a bigger impact or a positive impact, maybe, if you will, is really an eye-opening fact that most of us can do our jobs remotely and maybe do them even better. So I think there's going to be another impact that comes out of this, not just for the insurance industry, but for other industries. And I'm seeing friends and family are really, these companies are learning that this might change the way they handle work-life flexibility, or how that impacts what a company might be paying out on renting a building or leasing or buying a building and real estate. So we may see no change at all, but I think there's going to be something that comes out of this, and it may surprise us what does actually in the end.
So as mentioned before earlier, I usually work from home. I don't know if you've worked from home before this at all, even on a partial basis, but not something I would have wished for people to experience in the way it happened, but very humbling or very interesting to see how everyone kind of dealt with it, in that it's at first a little bit of an adjustment for sure, but I think for many people, especially folks who identify as introverts or folks who identify as self-motivated, not to necessarily say it's a default or a fault rather, to want to work from home. It could be that you're very focused on your work and you get your task done from 9 to 2 o'clock, and hey, that gives you 3 to 5, assuming you don't have calls to spend time with family or things like that. And kind of a more tech-enabled work environment allows you to do that. Did you have any experience working from home before this? Or if not, have there been any kind of big takeaways, and that could include the mindfulness or one day at a time approach, that have helped you adapt to that?
Well, throughout my career, even including non-insurance roles that I've had, I've worked both from home and I've worked in an office, and there's advantages to both. I'm a little bit of a social creature, so I like working from an office just in terms of wearing cute shoes every day and meeting people, having lunch, those kinds of things. Right. But working from home, that has its advantages too. You can really stay focused and you can have more of a full life. You can be a little bit more flexible in your schedule, as you say. If you're a focused person and you do well and you're self-motivated and self-driven, you can get a lot done in your day, maybe a lot more than you can at work, not having a commute. We might touch on that later, but not having a commute can be a really good thing. That's a big stressor, and can start your day off on a bad note.
Absolutely. Thank God for podcasts either way. But it's definitely helped me with that when I was going in. Now I'm pretty much full-time from home, even without the context of COVID-19. But kind of interesting to see. I'm with you on the lunch and ability to bounce ideas. I found is a big thing that's kind of not quite there. At least there's been no great technology solution to kind of address that. There is Zoom, which we're recording on right now, but that spontaneous ability to walk up to someone, bounce an idea, and get something that's kind of new versus a more formal meeting process, that's, for me at least, a little bit more intuitive in the way I think that something can come up and I can address it in the moment versus trying to write it down and save it for a meeting where you kind of lose some of the energy or context for that thought. So definitely feel you there. On the cute shoes front, I keep my collection at home for the most part, but I definitely understand the aspect of feeling that you're dressing for the context that you're in, and that kind of puts you in a different mindset. Even just wearing a dress shirt today for this puts me in a bit more of a formal or engaged or business-focused mindset than I probably would have otherwise been. So I get that aspect of it at least as well. And kind of speaking of technology, and this is more where my angle is, or my history is, so I'm a little biased and not trying to turn everything into a nail as a hammer, but is there anything that you're using now, and it could be as simple as Zoom, or it could be something insurance specific, that's kind of a lifesaver on the technology front, and it could be something that you're using in the office as well? Just curious how you've seen tech impact your day-to-day, even if it's completely unrelated to insurance.
Oh, well, I've been in the insurance business for long enough to have seen technology just take this to a whole other level. And anything that we use in our industry, from estimating software, even iPhones and those kinds of things, have just expanded the way we do business and helped our customers so much. The computer, the ability to use maybe a Zoom, Skype, or some other estimating technology, so you can do a virtual inspection. You can take somebody with their phone, their smartphone, and they can film their damage. And you can do that. You can handle that entire claim from, a dress shirt and pajama bottoms. You can handle your whole claim. I don't know about pajama bottoms or a dress shirt, but, you can take care of the claim a little bit more immediately, but also you can handle it remotely. You can use a drone to get to roofs that maybe would have delayed you for a day or a week trying to hire somebody to get you on a roof or to look on a difficult roof for you. So just being able to fly a drone and have that technology. It's a pretty amazing time. Yeah, it's a pretty amazing time in our industry. And I started at a time when they were still handwriting estimates. You didn't use a computer as much.
Right.
So even just a computer or a laptop that you can take with you is an amazing technology.
That's super interesting and agree with all of that. I've been listening to a few podcasts. We were talking about how great that aspect of the life is right before starting this. But something I heard on a podcast was kind of a front end focused or a front office focused platform for insurance companies, where it's a little bit of a marketplace like a Kayak or a we think of you understand, like the kind of online marketplaces for insurance companies with different policies, but kind of an easier way to compare that for customers. Is that something that is you would see as valuable, or any issues with that? And this is a little on the fly. Just it was something I heard right before we jumped on the call.
Well, things like what you're talking about, the ability to compare pricing or get online or do research about a company, it's changed everything. You can research a company. You can make your decisions based on other information. There's almost nothing we can't find out or learn at this point in our lives.
Right.
So
right.
I think it's made a lot of changes. If you want to be ignorant, you can, but there's no excuse because it's out there on the internet. You can make your comparisons and your decisions based on so many more factors now, and you don't have to take anyone's word for it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's very true. And I think me personally, we as more my company and in the claims management space, for context, for a while, I think a big change that we've noticed as well in this space, and this doesn't just apply to insurance, it's in healthcare, it's in law, and we have a legal billing tool as well. So kind of have seen that firsthand. But there's a bunch of industries where you've seen fintech, you've seen consumer tech, you've seen other areas really step the game up in terms of UI, UX, in terms of the technology behind it. If that's machine learning, or if that's blockchain, or if that's some aspect of natural language processing, things like that are all kind of baked together in a beautiful user experience. So we've seen kind of definitely a pressure or inspiration, at least for us, to increase that level of user experience and what goes into tech in these industries versus, I know looking at this back in the early 2000s, things were still very, and across the board, not necessarily just insurance, but was still relatively clunky. So to see insurance, law, and other areas that are definitely enterprise and B2B focus start to come up to the levels of B2C or what consumers are expecting in their applications is pretty rewarding. And trying to bring that to applications that we do is definitely a humbling experience and a long way to go. But I think to your point, information's out there, so you have no excuse not to either make it readily available as a very basic, but above that even, to make it readily available in a easy to use and easy to take action on format. So that's been a big part of our change, I think, over the last decade. And I guess kind of following on from that in terms of what's next, if you had $1 million and you could build whatever you want, is there something that doesn't exist today that you would use that money towards, or would it be to improve something that already exists?
I think we can't stop improving what already exists. And certainly just bigger, stronger, faster. Computer technology is still so wonky. And just to keep things online, keep them up and running, make them all speak to each other. I don't see any reason why if Amazon knows what I'm thinking because I've made some kind of search on Google, we should be able to do that in our industry specifically and make all these softwares talk to each other. So I'd probably take more than $1 million, but I would certainly try and get that started. So we wouldn't have to keep repeating ourselves. One and done.
Right. Yeah, interoperability is definitely a massive theme across all these enterprise industries. Healthcare is a massive one that's seen a lot of need for that as well. We're not as much in that space, but I have a lot of friends who are. So hear that word come up a lot. And I think in all enterprise technologies, that's definitely going to be needed. To your point, if you're writing something in one piece of software, you want that to be reflected across everything as opposed to having to repeat work and basically lose time and efficiency that could otherwise be used to do something a little bit more value add with the data that should be reflected across all your different silos or all your different software systems. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. Happy to switch now into, if you're willing to join me, into a little bit of a dorkier subject, or kind of an inside the actor studio style questions. Some insurance related, some not. And I suppose to start that off, which is kind of a way to enter the last phase of the show, would you say you have a claim superpower or something that has helped you uniquely within this space?
Claim superpower. Maybe I would call it a cause of loss instinct, or, maybe you'd call me the claims whisperer. I don't know. But I think just based on my years of experience and the fact that I'm a curious person and I don't like to let things rest until I really know the answer. I always believe there's an answer. So I think I've just developed that ability to have somebody tell me, well, we have some leaking, but we don't know where it's coming from. Oh, I'll find it. I think
right.
I have a pretty intuitive cause of loss instinct.
That's awesome. And I guess along those lines, given that you have that superpower, does that speak to anything that you would have done necessarily differently in your life career-wise? If you could go back to the very beginning and you knew that you had a great intuition in that area, would you still apply it to claims, or do you think there would be something else that you could see that being effective in, or you'd rather use it in as a more of a personal choice, I suppose?
Well, I think if I understand the question correctly, I would just, not let fear hold me back and say, your experience will show through. You'll overcome those things and you'll learn and grow. And
right.
Just letting go of a lot of things. When I first started this industry, there wasn't something like HGTV or other, podcasts or YouTube videos where you could learn things. Like, I started out in adjusting auto claims, and I had to learn those things, and some of them I learned on the job. Like, give me that tool, whatever it was, and the screwdriver, and I'll take the bumper off because I don't believe you. If damaged or not damaged, let's take a look.
Right.
So maybe something that, you can learn, and I'm maybe getting off on a tangent, getting back into technology, but like podcasts, like YouTube videos, even some reality shows on TV, they show you things that maybe you would have had to learn the hard way.
I would watch The Claims Whisperer.
Yeah. You would? Okay. Well, that'll be our next project. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. It's insurance meets Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something, or you being in the front line. We'll have to probably pay you with well, I don't know if you have self-defense classes or something like that, but I can imagine that would be pretty interesting to see how those interactions play out. But that's fantastic. I guess final question here. If you had any closing thoughts that you would share with the audience in the context of what's going on now, or just in general about what's going on in claims, CAT claims, or how to just do slightly better every day, is there something that you would share, or do you think we covered everything?
Well, I think really maybe my pet peeve or my big interest is being organized and just get a good routine, stick to it. Don't fall apart if you've got to change, because in the CAT claim industry or the insurance industry in general, things can change pretty quickly, and sometimes you have to work on the fly. But if you get yourself a good routine, you stick to it, you get organized. I particularly love color blocking in my calendar, and just find a tool or tools that work for you. And this is the key to success in not just the insurance industry, but I think any industry. Well said.
Fantastic. Well, that's it from me. This has been Matt Markham and Jane Castillo on the Claims Podcast. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Jane.
You're welcome.
Take care.